So, if you didn't catch it yesterday, I covered in my latest video a Game Rant article which discusses a brand new leak or rumour and some news regarding the next Mass Effect game. So, let's check it out.
Lockhart QT.
So the source I covered yesterday was this Game Rant article that I've got on screen now, but the actual source of this rumour was that according to Windows Central's Jez Corden, speaking during the latest episode of the Xbox 2 podcast, link in the description by the way, Jez mentioned a rumour that the next Mass Effect title will ditch the semi-open worlds of Mass Effect Andromeda in favour of returning to the franchise's classic format of, not being open world and being more sort of linear corridor based shooting. But once again, delving right into the article highlights are as follows. These are the main highlights. According to a new rumour, Mass Effect 4 will ditch the open world elements of Mass Effect Andromeda, potentially returning to the franchise's classic format. And the decision to move away from open world gameplay may help BioWare handle the massive scope of the upcoming RPG, which may involve a dual galaxy approach. So one thing to note straight away is obviously not to mislead or clickbait you guys, nothing has been confirmed by BioWare yet. Obviously they've teased things and I'll go into that in a second, but until BioWare confirms it either in a trailer, like a developer, like an insider video, or on Twitter, we don't know if this is 100%, so take it with a pinch of salt. So instead of just regurgitating the same things I covered in yesterday's video, I wanted to talk about more what this could mean for the franchise going forward in terms of the lore, the story and gameplay. So let's start off with the first highlight of Mass Effect 4 will ditch the open world elements of Andromeda, potentially returning to the classic format. Well, this is really telling. Obviously BioWare had a pretty bad launch with Mass Effect Andromeda as the game launched rushed out the door with loads of bugs, glitches and the very iconic "my face is too tired" meme. The game got absolutely obliterated on launch by critics, content creators and gamers alike, so BioWare don't want to make the same mistake here. Developing AAA big open world RPGs is becoming very expensive, time consuming and stressful for developers to handle. Some perfect examples of this were No Man's Sky at launch, Assassin's Creed Unity at launch and the infamous Cyberpunk 2077, which in my opinion has had the worst launch of any game of all time. I actually pre-ordered the game and had it at launch, so I can speak from a first-hand experience. It is the worst game I've ever played at launch in terms of just releasing utterly broken beyond repair. And obviously I say that, but all three of those games have now been fixed and now run just fine, and certain things have been changed, and it just goes to show you what potentially delaying a game can do. And by ditching this approach in terms of a semi-open world approach from Andromeda, BioWare can focus on creating a more handcrafted experience similar to Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, with more detail in smaller areas and bigger cinematic moments such as the Reaper fight on Rannoch or the suicide mission from Mass Effect 2. And hopefully ditching the semi-world open design game style will hopefully cause the game to come out well polished, fully complete, with less bugs, and to a higher quality that we all hold EA and BioWare to. Now on to the second highlight. The decision to move away from open world gameplay may help BioWare handle the massive scope of the upcoming RPG, which may involve a dual galaxy approach, with the emphasis there on dual galaxy approach, which is something that I've covered on past videos. Now this is something I'd like to delve into a whole lot more. BioWare have an interesting opportunity here in terms of a dual galaxy approach. Now the fan base for me is completely divided. I even see it myself in my own comments on my own videos. You've got those who love the original trilogy and the Legendary Edition, and those who actually prefer and love Andromeda, and those who hate all of those games. Like, for example, you'll have people who love the OG trilogy but then hate Andromeda, and vice versa. All these games have something to offer to many different people, so by allowing travel to both galaxies and actually including both the Milky Way and Andromeda, BioWare can hopefully appease all fan bases here, which is a very dangerous thing to do, because if done poorly, could end up upsetting both. Now, to support this, in the teaser trailer that was released all the way back in 2020 during the Game Awards, we see an opening shot of both the Milky Way galaxy and Andromeda. This was confirmed by BioWare on Twitter. Also in the trailer we hear Godspeed Pathfinder, which is an audio clip taken directly from Mass Effect Andromeda when you take off in the Tempest for the first time. We also have debris that looks like, they actually look like broken Reaper parts, ship parts, and potentially Citadel parts, as well as potentially the arcs from Andromeda. Again, we don't know. And we then finish the trailer with, of course, the iconic shot that caught everyone's glance of Liara to Sony on an unknown planet, which seems to be potentially in the Milky Way, as we see dead Reapers on a snowy planet, with Liara, of course, picking up the N7 helmet piece. This was actually confirmed by project director Mike Gamble on Twitter, and he basically replied to people asking questions saying that yes, these are definitely Reapers in space and as well as on the planet. But speaking of this handsome devil though, Mike as well as other BioWare devs have actually gone to Twitter to answer questions and actually tease the next upcoming Mass Effect game, confirming that the team have actually gone back and done their homework. They've actually gone back and had to replay the original trilogy as well as Andromeda, confirming the Reapers and obviously Godspeed Pathfinder audio were all included in that trailer and in the marketing for a purpose and for a reason. But we also have the biggest wrench into the dual galaxy theory and gameplay element here, that is Liara herself. Liara's inclusion here could be much bigger than we thought. Theory number 1. Liara could be here shortly after Mass Effect 3's ending, looking for something or someone, potentially Commander Shepard or another squad mate. Or theory number 2, this could take place in Andromeda's timeline, 600 years in the future after Mass Effect 3's ending, as we do know that Asari can obviously live that long, looking at you, Samara. The only other bit of evidence to suggest an actual time skip in the trailer is that Liara kind of looks a bit older in this trailer, but again, this is more speculation, this is just like wild theories, because again, without BioWare confirming this, we have no idea. We did also have this Game Informer podcast that was actually, it came out in 2021, that we've actually covered previously on the channel, where the journalist says this.
And I feel like if you're interested in the future, obviously we know Liara's much older. I would put her at now around 800 years, given off the trailer, and also I've confirmed that she's much older with the BioWare devs as well. So we know it's very much set in the future, and so like I feel like the ending of the.
Now, after doing a bit of research, we do know that Game Informer have inside sources at both EA and BioWare, but yet again, this seems a bit wild speculation, and I think they're just sort of misspeaking, because it sounds as if they definitely know, like, oh wow, BioWare have definitely told me this. But the strange thing here is that BioWare have never actually confirmed Liara's age or the timeline that this game actually takes place in as of writing this video right now, so we don't actually know. Personally, to me, she looks like the same old Liara, and it could just be the fact that this model looks older to some people, but then to other people it looks like just a bit better. She looks the same age. Again, we don't really know. And of course we have the secret transmission from N7 Day, which could be actually dated.
I can see it. How did we miss this? Exactly. The Council will be furious. Although they should know by now not to underestimate human defiance. Perhaps was the most endearing trait.
Now, I've again already covered this to oblivion on the channel many times, but in this secret transmission from N7 Day we hear Liara talking to unknown characters that sound like Geth, as well as we see a station of some kind in the background. By the way, this isn't a mass relay, this was actually confirmed by BioWare themselves on Twitter, and it's something that I've actually missed a couple times, so I just wanted to cover that here. But we also see a potential date in the bottom left corner, potentially being 2190, which could be the next game's actual date, which would take place a few years after Mass Effect 3, which might make it very difficult to include a dual galaxy concept. Now, during a different N7 Day post, we also got some concept art showing a now unconfirmed planet cityscape with some interesting signs and art. If you look closely, you can actually see the signs that have been directly ported and taken from Mass Effect 2's Omega, as well as the bar in Andromeda. I think it's called Flux. Again, I've got no idea. I've covered it in previous videos. I'm not going to cover it here. It's the bar from Andromeda. That's all you need to know. But if we take all of this information into account from BioWare themselves, all the evidence here does point to a dual galaxy map, which in my opinion would be really cool. Imagine somehow traveling between the Milky Way and Andromeda. Now, the big question here is, how on earth does Ryder play into this? Because if it takes place in the future, at some point we're going to have to hear mention of Ryder, Pathfinder Ryder and his crew from Mass Effect Andromeda, the squad mates that we actually play as. Imagine exploring both Andromeda as well as the Milky Way individual planets. But the problem here is the timeline. BioWare have to choose very wisely, as this could get really messy in terms of the actual lore and the timeline and the story. They have to write something that fits into both Andromeda's world and lore, that is displayed in the game, as well as making a proper continuation of the original trilogy story and characters, because for the OG fans, they've been waiting for a proper Mass Effect 3 sequel for many years. And with the Legendary Edition coming out, sort of reintroducing people and bringing in new fans to the original trilogy story and characters and world, it just makes sense that the Milky Way is at least coming back. But the question is Andromeda? We lastly know that we've also had the news of EA and BioWare recently. They had a massive restructuring in terms of the Star Wars MMO team, bringing them back into BioWare, as in working on both Dragon Age Dreadwolf as well as the new Mass Effect, the next Mass Effect game, as well as BioWare letting go of around 50 employees to restructure the studio to basically make them more focused. Again, there's been loads of controversy onto this, and my heart does go out to those affected. Hopefully that people have been relocated with inside EA or have found work elsewhere, because there's a lot of talented employees that have been let go here. But this all definitely supports the fact that the next game would be more focused, driven, and potentially return back to the classic format of being a linear story driven game. Like I said earlier, AAA massive open world RPGs are incredibly expensive and difficult to make compared to other games. So if BioWare had a more controlled team working on a more controlled linear game where they could actually control elements such as the environment, they wouldn't have issues like pop-in or random bugs flying everywhere like it and glitches going everywhere from like open world elements. Think of Bethesda games that are just known for it. Obviously, hopefully it would be an easier game to make, and hopefully the game could release a bit sooner as well. Anyway everyone, that's been my massive video on covering everything that could support a dual galaxy concept, as well as them returning to the more classic format of Mass Effect games based upon this rumour. Again, it's just a rumour at the moment. We don't know any further information from BioWare themselves. If we do hear anything, I'll be the first to cover it, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you so much for watching, and for more Mass Effect content, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.